Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful for that answer. The Prime Minister says that changes are being made, and I hope that we can have a regular update on how well this unified command how it will be brought about and when, and how we can see progress on that. Can I turn to another aspect of foreign policy? Does the Prime Minister agree with me that following the Irish vote, the Lisbon Treaty should be declared dead?
Mr. Speaker, I will be attending the European Council tomorrow, and I think it's right to bring the House up to date with what has been happening. We respect the decision of the Irish. They have asked to have more time to discuss what their proposals will be to deal with the situation. They have not suggested either that they wish to postpone the ratification of the Lisbon Treaty for other countries, or that they wish to stall the whole process. And just as we have respect for the Irish, we should have respect for the other countries that are processing the treaty and ratifying the treaty as well. And perhaps we should also have respect for this House, which has voted for the ratification of the treaty.
The Prime Minister should understand that either this treaty is dead or it isn't. And I simply don't understand why he doesn't have the courage to say that it is dead. This is not a treaty that Britain wanted or needed. It's a treaty he was so ashamed of that he had to sign it in a room all on his own. Because the Prime Minister won't take a lead and declare this treaty dead, everyone suspects that he and others in Europe are going to make the Irish vote again. Will he guarantee that he would never support such an arrogant and high-handed move? Wouldn't it be ridiculous to ask the Irish to vote twice when we haven't even been allowed to vote once?
Mr. Speaker, to take on from his first question, this is surely a matter for the Irish to decide what they want to do, not for him to tell them what they want to do or us to tell them what they want to do. And I have to say to him, he forgets all the time during this discussion that 60% of our trade is with the European Union, that 3 million jobs depend on the European Union, that his party supports the enlargement of the European Union, and the whole purpose of the treaty is to bring into place the institutional arrangements that make the enlargement possible. Once again, the Conservative Party will the ends, but they don't support the means.
The Prime Minister says this is a matter for the Irish people, but the Irish people have spoken. They have said no. Which part of no doesn't the Prime Minister understand? And the Prime Minister says he doesn't want to bully Ireland, but doesn't he understand that continuing with the ratification process is doing precisely that? The Foreign Secretary says that we've got to proceed in order to express a British view. If the Prime Minister wants to hear a British view, why doesn't he ask the British people?
Mr. Speaker, the last time a Conservative government was in power, when the Maastricht Treaty came up, the then Prime Minister came to the House and said, "Our partners propose to complete the ratification procedures. We share that judgment and intend to continue with the passage of the bill," and that's what they did. And as for the referendum, they opposed a referendum on Maastricht, which was about more integration. They opposed a referendum on the Single European Act when they were in power. They even proposed the initial referendum on membership of the European Union. Even now, they cannot give a straight answer on whether they support a post-ratification referendum. This is not a position of principle. It is opposition for opposition's sake once again.
He wants to know. The Prime Minister wants to know whether we support a post-ratification referendum. Ratifying what exactly after this Irish no vote? The Prime Minister goes on. Instead of going on about John Major, why not supply some leadership? I know that he's determined.
Order. Allow the Leader of the Opposition to speak. Mr Norris, you're far too noisy. I've said it to you, you're far too noisy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the Prime Minister wants to live in the past, but why don't we learn from the past? And the whole lesson of the last 10 years is that you cannot build support for these sorts of changes without holding a referendum. And while he talks about history, let's have a quick look at Labour's history on this. Yes, all the time when you were in the government, First, they said they didn't want a constitution. Then they said they'd accept a constitution. They said they didn't want a referendum. Then they said they'd have a referendum. Then they cancelled the referendum and they brought back the constitution. Now the constitution is half dead on the floor. They haven't got the courage to kill it. Frankly, I have seen more spine and leadership from a bunch of jellyfish. Why doesn't the Prime Minister give some leadership, tell us what he thinks, and kill this treaty today?
Mr. Speaker, as far as the referendum is concerned, let's remember what his former Chancellor said, that a European referendum, he said, would be crackpot, dotty and frankly absurd. And if he wants to show the Conservative Party has really changed, why doesn't he change the position to support the European Union? And if he wants to lead his party, why is he being led by the backbencher anti-Europeans who are dictating the tune every time? We know where we are. We are in favour of Europe. The 3 million jobs that depend on it, and we will work for a European Union that helps Britain.